do people exercise? Here in Jacksonville, as well as across the nation, people are caught up in a physical fitness craze. Why do people work so hard to stay fit? At the turn of the century, the major cause of death was infectious disease, flu, pneumonia, tuberculosis. But today, more than 50% of the population will die from lifestyle-related causes: cardiovascular disease, stroke, cancer, and accidents. No doubt about it, we live in a stressful environment, and we need to learn how to control stress and achieve a state of wellness. In this program on Jacksonville's environment, we focus on an aspect of our environment over which we as individuals have some control: our personal environment. We can enhance, embellish, and improve our personal environment, or we can ignore it. The choice is ours. What is meant by the term wellness? How can we manage stress in our lives? What constitutes a good diet and exercise program? We consider these questions and more as we examine our personal environment and the choices we make. One choice we make is whether or not to exercise. Why do people run, for example? We addressed this question to some of the participants in the annual River Run.
I started running for exercise, and I'm also a teacher, physical education, so I run to reinforce that.
I've been running since about '76, but I really haven't started competing until 2 years ago. I ran in the Marine Corps Marathon in Washington, D.C., and I've just started, competing a little more every year now.
The reason I ran the River Run is just for personal accomplishment, just to see if I could do it, see how good I could do.
Physical fitness and basically just to maintain my weight.
Physical exercise, role model, competition, personal accomplishment. People run and perform other types of exercises for a variety of reasons. But the bottom line is improved health and a greater sense of well-being. What do we mean by this term, wellness?
I like to define wellness as an advanced state of health achieved as a result of personal choices, conscious effort, and responsible behavior. It can be described as a quality or state of optimal well-being or the effect of a healthy lifestyle. Self-responsibility is the focus of the wellness movement. Each of us must acknowledge the fact that our own actions in large measure determine our level of wellness, and that it's unrealistic and actually unsafe to put the responsibility for our well-being in someone else's hands. Physicians can cure us when we're ill and help us when we're injured, but we can't expect them to accept the responsibility for keeping us healthy. Success in achieving advanced wellness is determined not by the actions of others, but by what we do to and for ourselves.
Indeed, Thomas Edison is credited with saying, "The doctor of the future will give no medicine, but will interest his patient in the care of the human frame, in diet, and in the cause of prevention of disease." Wellness is a form of prevention. Wellness involves not only physical exercise, but also includes good nutrition and managing stress. A wellness lifestyle is multidimensional. It includes the physical, intellectual, emotional, social, and spiritual dimensions of our lives.
We can't just be a jogger or a calorie counter or a meditator and be totally healthy. Being physically fit, academically accomplished, or professionally successful is not the same thing as being totally well.
Achieving a state of wellness, then, depends upon the development of a healthy lifestyle. Research confirms that changes in our daily behavior can bring about improvements in our health. 80% of all of our health problems could be eliminated if we made changes in just 5 of our daily behaviors. Wellness shows a dramatic improvement when we become more physically fit, improve our diet, quit smoking cigarettes, limit consumption of alcoholic beverages, and improve our ability to manage stress. Sound impossible? Many of the habits we acquire are attempts to manage or control the stresses in our lives. Let's take a look at stress and different types of stress management.
Stress is an ever-increasing problem. What is stress exactly? Hans Salye, a leading authority in the field of stress management, defines stress as our non-specific response to any demand. I think a better working definition that we can use in understanding stress is our mental, our emotional, and our physical reactions to the demands of living. To make that even more clear, let's break that definition apart. First, in understanding stress, you must understand that part of stress has to do with the demands of living, with the forces that impact upon us day after day. These demands can be very large, such as the death of a loved one, or they can be very small, such as a telephone ringing or a child crying. They can also be good, a promotion on a job, or bad, such as, for example, the loss of a job. But these demands, as I say, are one part of the definition of stress, because each of us has to, in some way or another, face these demands day after day after day. And eventually, if we're faced with too many demands, with too many stressors over a period of time, our systems will break down.
When you look at the history of illness, you find that in the first part of the century, the major cause of death was infectious diseases. Today, only 1% of the population will die from infectious diseases, but approximately 51% of death and disability are caused by lifestyle-related illnesses. Stress is a major factor.
So it's important, first of all, to understand stressors, or the demands that you face. Secondly, if you remember our definition, you recall that the other part of the definition involves our reactions to these demands. And these reactions are usually termed or called the fight or flight response, or the emergency reaction, or the alarm reaction, or the stress response.
As the stresses of daily living increase, stress management is becoming more popular.
And what we do in stress management is help people learn to manage either the demands in their life, their environment, or to manage themselves better internally, their own stress response. One thing to consider in managing your own stress is to first of all look at the demands that you face and gauge where your stress is coming from, trying to determine where the causes are. And the second thing, which we'll talk a little bit more about today, is having to do with managing that internal response, the stress response. You can do these things in a number of ways.
Biofeedback is one way of coping with stress. Biofeedback is a method of measuring different physiological responses of the body, such as muscle tension, temperature, heart rate, and teaching the individual how to control these responses. Biofeedback is used for a number of different types of problems, such as gastrointestinal disorders, some types of hypertension, high blood pressure, dental problems, and general anxiety and tension. Here, biofeedback is being used to learn to control headaches.
The equipment's going to sit here and it's going to tell you that's a tense muscle, that's a relaxed muscle. And the way it's going to tell you that is by the use of a tone. Okay? Let me show you what I mean. You can see the dial, and you can see that the dial's moving back and forth. We also have a sound. Funny little tone. What I'd like for you to do is clench your teeth together. You hear that? Now I'd like for you to relax. Relax your jaw. Close your eyes. Take a slow, deep breath.
Another technique for managing stress is hypnotism, a form of deep relaxation.
Hypnosis is one of several very effective means of stress management. Hypnosis is a very pleasant, a very natural, a very easy manner of learning deep relaxation, so that the person receives a very effective rest at the cellular level, where stress does its greatest damage. But we find that a few minutes a day of deep relaxation, a learned relaxation, I might add, is effective in being able to help a person to avoid most of the fatigue from stress, and gives a person as well a means of active participation in health, so that we are able, through the use of teaching self-hypnosis, to help a person learn stress management as well as learn a means of changing health behaviors to more positive and creative ways.
Hypnosis may also be used for pain control, habit control, and goal achievement.
Okay, we want to give her a few minutes to say whatever she would like to say. She can just say what the experience is like for you, if it's a good experience or what.
I can quote from something you've said. It's like taking your body and parking it and going someplace else and watching over everything that is around you, but you're not involved in it.
Hypnosis, in fact, is a concentrated state of attention, a heightened state of awareness, in which a suggestion becomes very powerful. We find that this is an effective way of creating a mental environment or a mental determination for change.
Stress management classes are offered through continuing education programs as well as by many employers who want to maintain the well-being of their employees. Whatever the form, people are learning that dealing with stress is an important component of their lives. Another important component in achieving a healthy lifestyle is maintaining a proper diet through adequate nutrition and weight management.
In through, out, through, 3, through, 4, and through, hands on the floor and up.
Thanks to modern technology, we have far greater freedom to choose foods from a far greater variety in the local stores and restaurants than people ever had before. But with freedom comes both risk and responsibility. We have to make choices. One of the major nutrition problems in this century has been vitamin deficiencies. And one of the best ways to make sure we don't have a vitamin deficiency is to eat a variety of foods. The basic 4 food groups are probably familiar to most everyone: the vegetable and fruit group, the bread and cereal group, the meat, fish, poultry group, and the milk and cheese group. But one of the problems in analyzing diets based on the basic 4 food groups is that most of us at the end of the day don't sit down and say, oh, did I have 2 servings of milk or 2 servings of protein? Dr. Catherine Christie, endocrine dietitian, explains.
Protein. So it's not a useful tool. It's not something that we use every day to analyze what we eat. One of the other problems with this is that it doesn't address some of the major nutrition problems that face us today. It does take care of the variety of food concept, but it doesn't address the overweight and some of the problems of overnutrition that we have in our society today.
Another useful tool for teaching people about an adequate diet is the concept of nutrient density. Stated simply, nutrient density means that for a certain number of calories, you also want to take in a large amount of nutrients. Cards from the National Dairy Council illustrate this concept. The number of calories in a given food are located in the column. Across the bottom are the nutrients.
We all can only eat a certain amount of calories a day and maintain our weight. And so we want to choose foods that provide a lot of nutrients for the calories that we're consuming. Orange juice is a good example of that. Relatively low in calories, but high in nutrients, particularly vitamin C. Another example of that is looking at the typical, what some people consider the typical American breakfast. Most of us start our morning with coffee, and coffee doesn't have any calories or nutrients. The nutrients that are shown here are from the cream and the calories from the sugar that's been added to this cup of coffee. If you look at the Danish pastry, this is an example of a food that's not a nutrient-dense food. It's very high in calories, but doesn't have much in terms of nutrients. In contrast to that, let me show you what a food that is nutrient-dense would look like. This is beef liver. Fairly low in calories, but look at the nutrients across the bottom. So this is a good example of a food that's nutrient-dense.
If we become aware of the foods that are high in nutrients, perhaps we can better select a balanced diet, and in this way help control our weight. One of the major health problems that we have in this country is that of obesity. It's been estimated that somewhere between 25 and 50% of adult Americans are overweight or obese. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has published a pamphlet which, if followed, can reduce some of the health risk associated with our current American diet.
The first guideline is eat a variety of foods, and this goes back to the basic 4 food groups and trying to make sure that we are getting the nutrients that we need from a variety of foods. The second one is maintain ideal weight. And this is a concept that addresses the idea of obesity and how many calories a person needs to maintain their weight. The third is avoid too much fat, saturated fat, and cholesterol. These foods that contain these constituents have been associated with heart disease and a high risk of heart disease, and so that's the reason that this one has been included. The fourth one, eat foods with adequate starch and fiber. A lot of times we hear that fiber is the forgotten nutrient. It's something that's necessary in the diet, but we don't always think about it, and a lot of people don't know where fiber can be found. Avoid too much sugar. This speaks not only to the sugar that we add to foods and just table sugar, but also sugar that's hidden in foods. There's a lot of sugar in foods that you might not consider. If you're a diabetic and you're very concerned with how much sugar is in food, you can find out a lot by reading the label. One of the problems with that is that they don't always call sugar sugar, and so you need to know what to look for. Avoid too much sodium is the 6th guideline, and this is related to the health risk from high blood pressure. There have been many studies that have shown an association with a high intake of salt and hypertension, and most people that have high blood pressure are immediately placed on a low sodium diet. And finally, if you drink alcohol, do so in moderation.
The public is becoming more aware of the importance of nutrition and its relation to health. As our knowledge of good nutrition increases, professionals help us make wise food choices throughout our lives. But we as consumers can also make an impact. The market has responded to public demands for labels containing information on ingredients. Foods lower in sugar, salt, fat, and preservatives are now available. Whole grains and whole wheat breads can now be found on supermarket shelves. And look at the changes in restaurant menus. 10 years ago, salad bars were unheard of, and fresh fruits and vegetables uncommon. We can influence the foods available, but we've got to remember to make healthy choices. In addition to providing information on food and nutrition and establishing dietary guidelines, health professionals are involved in many different aspects of health promotion. Wellness centers and employee assistance programs are becoming integral parts of healthcare establishments. Most of us are familiar with the traditional concept of hospitals treating patients who are ill, but more and more, hospitals are establishing centers for health promotion. These wellness centers are geared toward helping people already healthy stay healthy. They help educate the public about risk factors that may lead to health problems in the future.
Programs are designed to help each individual learn where their potential health problems are, and then to provide the programs that are needed to prevent these things. There's generally, both at our center and all the different types of wellness centers that are arising throughout the city, will provide medical evaluations as a basis to begin evaluating and helping the individual know where their stress or their health-related factors are. There is generally some type of computerized analysis of diet, of sleep habits, of exercise, general stress from the environment as well as personal things. Then there will be individual counseling as needed, and then also programs offered through the centers or through hospitals to relate to the specific problems of the individual.
One type of health assessment different from the concept of weight management is the idea of measuring the percentage of body fat. Using a device called skin fold calipers, body fat can be measured and used as a gauge of fitness. River Run participants seem to be especially interested in how fit they are. In the past, the Jacksonville Dietetic Association has sponsored a booth at the River Run.
As part of our booth with the River Run, we measure the percentage of body fat. Percentage of body fat is used especially for active people as a better gauge of fitness. A 200-pound man who is approximately 10 to 15% fat, is in pretty good shape, whereas the same 200-pound man that would be 25% body fat is obviously in not as good a shape.
An acceptable range of body fat for a moderately active male, 20 to 30 years old, is in the 15 to 20% range. And women?
Yeah, women's going to be a little higher. Their percentage of body fat is a little bit higher, and they'll be in the 15 to 25% range.
Achieving and then maintaining an ideal body weight is one objective toward the goal of total wellness. Giving up cigarettes and cutting back on alcohol are also strongly recommended by the medical community.
The sickest people I see in my practice are often suffering from what I call diseases of self-abuse. These include cigarette smoking, alcohol and other drug use, and obesity. These diseases often start as a response to external stresses in the environment, but become themselves stresses that impact on our physical and psychological well-being. On some level, this has to be a matter of personal choice as far as what we choose to put into our bodies.
Well, I think that if I'm going to tell my patients to try to get healthy and improve their health, then I have to be a role model for them to do a good job.
I'd love to run, and it's just a big happening in Jacksonville. I look forward to it. That's why I was just telling this guy a while ago, this run dominates my life. I start getting ready for it early in the year, and I just love to run it.
I have friends running in it, so I just ran along with them. I think they're behind me, though.
A wellness lifestyle is a matter of personal choices. We are not forced to be under-exercised, malnourished, or overstressed. We could just as easily be fit, healthy, and relaxed, but other choices would have to be made.
Our personal environment, the environment over which we as individuals have some control. What are you doing in your life? The choice is yours.